One unique aspect of China is its craft beer brewing scene. Great Leap Brewery founder Carl Setzer is passionate about his beer, his pubs, and most definitely his life. He really did start the craft beer scene in Beijing back in 2010 when he brewed his first small batch and opened his pub doors the next month. He grew his business slowly, and it's been a hit ever since.
We specialize in locally sourced raw materials in our beers, and then the responsibility of creating a Chinese craft beer culture. So not necessarily copying something from the West, but creating something that could be identified as uniquely and wholly Chinese. The specific cuisine culture of China, the opportunity to try and create something that could match such a diverse culinary variety in a country as diverse as China was very exciting as a challenge, and then it just turned into our life. When we started, we had nothing. We self-funded the brewery. We had a very small homemade 200-liter system. The system that's behind me now is 1,000 liters. And so what you saw was me behind the bar, a very simple brew house, and all the time in the world to talk to people about what our dream was. And so when you started seeing, foreign bosses or expats bringing their Chinese friends, for the most part, the Chinese friends were just very much, out of their element. It was boring, they didn't understand, this isn't beer, that kind of a thing. But there was always one guy out of that group who would come back a couple days later, order a couple more beers, really think about it, but not talk to me. And so you'd give him another beer, and he would try it, and he'd think, and he'd finish it, and then he'd do 3 or 4, and then he'd leave. And then he comes back 2 or 3 days later with 9 friends, and his attitude's completely different. It's, look what I found, and I want to introduce you to. And that's how we've built this entire brand of it's glass by glass, customer by customer.
Let's have a little fun for a minute here. We're going to do a flight of 4 of Great Leap Brewery's signature beers. So we'll start with the Little General IPA. Now, IPA, India Pale Ale, this beer is going to be a lot hoppier. When the British were making this and had to ship it to India to last the voyage, they added a lot more hops to keep the stability and the balance. Very, very hoppy, which, my story, obviously.
You look at the overall history of the craft beer explosion in America, but also the consumption culture of China. When you go back to the 19th and 18th century, China was where high-end goods came from. The idea of luxury was what arrived on the trader ships in the bays of Europe that was coming from the Orient. So when you look at it in those terms, China has all the potential in the world. To Chinify your product is literally just make it, local. Use local grains, use local hops, treat your water properly here so you can make this transparency with your Chinese consumer that they see this is from my country, and it's something I can be proud of. I don't have to say, Bavarian style beer is the best or Czech style beer is the best. I can proudly say that China has great beer too. The localization of the product is the fun part. The names, the ingredients, the recipes, all of those things, that's where you have the real fun. The labor of love is branding and giving it an identity and giving it a spirit. And so that's the part of this business that we love the most.
East City Porter. This would be the equivalent of a dark beer. And again, these are all craft brew beers. So, you're gonna base these, this would be the, I guess, Guinness, but nowhere close to being that heavy. Really nice flavor, not too heavy. It's not exactly lunch by itself.
The products that Great Leap Brewing is most well known for are the core brands of our Chinese craft beer recipes. And so our most popular beer amongst all of our brands is the Honey Ma Gold, and that's a beer that we actually started Great Leap to make. My wife and I were sitting in a restaurant in Beijing, years ago, and we were eating a dish, and it had this really beautiful, mouth-watering, peppery, numbing effect, and it's the result of the peppercorns that originated from Sichuan province. So from that, it just became, okay, go home, get on the internet, see if anybody uses this peppercorn in beer, and no one does. We figured out how to build our own home brewing equipment, figured out how to do all of the steps of basic brewing. And throughout that process, we probably brewed, between 40 and 50 different batches of Honey Ma Gold. Because, where does the peppercorn go in? If the peppercorn is, too sharp of a influence on the beer, obviously we need to balance it with something. Okay, let's increase the grain. All right, well, that's too high of an alcohol, and the grain still is too mild of a sugar note to balance out that pepperiness, so we turn to honey.
This is a Honey Ma Gold. Now, the Honey Ma Gold is a really unique beer that they're making because they add the Sichuan peppers, and the Sichuan peppers are known to make your tongue and, quite frankly, most of your mouth go a little bit numb. A lot of fun. It doesn't last long. I'm going to finish this quickly before my mouth goes numb and I can't speak to finish the last beer. Never that hard.
The popularity of that beer when we first opened was the shock value of, oh man, they put Sichuan peppercorn in beer. But as people drank it, they realized, man, this is actually just a really great beer. Out of the 18 to 20 brands that we keep on tap at any time at our current situation, the #1 seller night after night is the Honey Ma Gold, and that's something that we're really proud of because it shows that China is ready to embrace a craft beer culture that is their own.
Like Carl said, they are very well known for their quality beers with a Chinese twist. But he forgot to mention the burgers. You gotta try the burgers. I'm Jody Ness.